Join me tonight on YouTube at 6:45 p.m. Eastern as we will live stream the XFL game taking place tonight. And now, on with our feature presentation. I want you to picture this scenario. It's Sunday afternoon during football season, and your team is playing at 1 o'clock Eastern. So you flip on the TV about 30 minutes beforehand to watch the pregame show and get some last-minute updates on the matchups around the league, plus to hear the talking heads talk about your game. You flip on CBS, and you see The Crew, with James Brown alongside guys like Boomer Esiason and Bill Cowher. Or you flip on Fox, and you see The Crew, with Kurt Menefee alongside guys like Michael Strahan and Terry Bradshaw. This is how it is across the entire country. If you flip on CBS or Fox before the game, you're going to see the pregame show, no questions asked. In fact, it's tough to imagine an NFL game on Sunday afternoons being led in by something that wasn't a pregame show, and rather being led in by a completely different sport, because the pregame show got preempted for something else. And I don't mean a one-off thing like what we saw this past season, where Fox NFL Sunday didn't air because we had the incredible final of the FIFA World Cup between France and Argentina, or what we saw in 2020 when CBS aired the final round of the Masters, meaning that the NFL Today was not shown. I mean that every single week, you couldn't watch the pregame show because some station manager thought it would be a good idea to show something completely unrelated. Well, in 1985, that's exactly what happened in Wichita with their NBC affiliate. You would think that seeing as NBC was the station where AFC games were being shown, with Kansas City Chiefs games being shown routinely on the network, and only not being shown there if they had a primetime game on Monday Night Football, or if they hosted an NFC team, that it would make the most sense for the NBC affiliate there to show the pregame show where they talk about the Chiefs and the other NFL games, just like literally every other NBC station in the country does. But apparently not. Apparently, they had to show something else instead. And when you realize what exactly that was, oh man, this truly makes no logical sense whatsoever. Because this is the story behind one of the craziest broadcasting controversies of the entire 1985 season. Before I talk about the actual controversy in question, we need some context to understand what just about everyone thought was supposed to happen, because it was pretty standard across the country. In 1985, if you were an NFL fan and wanted to watch a pregame show before the early slate of games, you had two options to pick from. You had the NFL Today on CBS, and you had NFL 85 on NBC. The NBC pregame show featured Bob Costas as the studio host, and alongside him, you had former Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Ahmad Rashad, who you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. You had Axe, and you also had Larry King. NBC and CBS had two wildly different pregame shows, with NBC trying to reinvent the wheel and do innovative things, while CBS just stuck to the formula that worked so well for them for the last decade. The two shows were almost polar opposites of each other, even though they both talked about the NFL. So it absolutely made a difference in the eyes of many which one you watch. As one writer said, where the NFL Today is bossy, NFL 85 is brassy. Where the NFL Today is stuffy, NFL 85 is sassy. But for all of NBC's irreverence, it doesn't necessarily make NFL 85 a better show than the NFL Today. It just makes it different, which at least gives the viewer an alternative. That is, in most of the country at least. In most of the country, you have the option to pick between the show on CBS and the show on NBC. But if you were living in Kansas City, yeah, not so much. Because when you sat down in front of your TV screen at 11:30 Central Time, and you flipped on NBC, hoping to get a preview of the Chiefs game coming up, you were straight out of luck. Instead, you were treated to none other than the Mike Gottfried Show. What is the Mike Gottfried Show, you may ask? Well, it's a 30-minute recap of whatever took place in Kansas football the previous day, with head coach Mike Gottfried participating alongside a host. A ton of coaches had shows like this back in the day, where they show extended highlights of the game that took place the previous day. The coach talks about the plays, and might even do a bit of X's and O's to dissect why the play worked, talks about his players, and gives some inside information, and previews the next game for a bit. If you want to watch an episode of one of these shows when it comes to other coaches besides Gottfried, there are a ton of options available online, like Rich Brooks at Oregon and Pat Jones at Oklahoma State. The formula is pretty consistent all the way through. But that's what the NBC affiliate in Wichita, KSNW, decided to do. Despite Wichita being Chiefs country, and despite Wichita being over 160 miles away from Lawrence, where the Jayhawks play, so it's not even like you can argue that Lawrence is right nearby, because it's about as far to go there as it is to go to Kansas City, KSNW showed the Mike Gottfried Show. Now on the surface, there are a few absolutely insane things about doing this, and about preempting one football program for another. Number one, the Mike Gottfried Show is not live. It's just a highlight show of what happened in Kansas football the previous day. You could show that show, quite literally, at any time, and it would not make a difference whatsoever. A live pregame show might have information that is pertinent to what's about to happen, and might have newsworthy info that can't be missed. In many ways, it's a news report of sorts, but for the NFL. A highlight show of what happened 24 hours ago that was pre-taped? Not so much. Number two, there was nowhere in the contract that KSNW had that said they had to air this show. While KSNW had the Raycom package to get the Big 8 game of the week and a similar show for Kansas basketball featuring Larry Brown, airing this show was completely optional. Anthony Maisel, the vice president and general manager of KSNW, flat out said that the station was not required to run the show. And what that means is that even if you want to run the show, there's nothing that says it has to air at 11:30. It would be one thing if KSNW said, "We hate preempting NFL 85 every week, because we want to show that. However, in the long run, this is better, because if we don't preempt it, then we can't show Big 8 games and Kansas basketball." That would just be a story of an affiliate caught in a pickle and in a no-win situation. But that wasn't the case here. They could have aired the Mike Gottfried Show at literally any time, and it would have made no difference. Just for fun, let's look at what a typical Sunday for the NBC affiliate in Wichita looked like, where they could have aired this show instead, keeping in mind that Kansas State had a similar show at 11 o'clock, so that was obviously off the table. At 7 o'clock, they air the show Perspective. Alright, that's a church program, and everyone runs one of those on Sundays, so that's out of the picture. At 7:30, they air James Robison. That's another church program. Not sure you need two, but okay, you get your hour of prayer in there. That's fine. At 8 o'clock, they aired Robert Schuller. That's, okay, that's 3 in a row. That's a lot of TV time on NBC for that, but fine. 90 minutes of prayer and healing and finding God. At 8:30, they aired Larry Jones. Don't even tell me, yep, that's 4 in a row. Okay, so you get your prayer in from 7 to 9, but there's plenty of time after that. At 9 o'clock, you have Herald of Truth. You can guess what that one is. 5 in a row. At 9:30, you have, oh, you're kidding me, Oral Roberts. I don't even have to say anything. You know what that is. 3 hours in a row. That was followed at 10 o'clock by, oh, come on, are you kidding me? Success in Life? Another church program? Which was then followed at 10:30 by Lowell Lundstrom. Alright, I haven't heard that name before. Maybe it's a local news reporter, maybe it's a weatherman, maybe it's, oh, come on, that's 8! Count them! 8 programs in a row devoted to the church! If you replaced one of the 4 hours worth of programming with Mike Gottfried's show, I promise you, no one is batting an eye. You're telling me you're willing to take off all the football fans in the region and the higher-ups at NBC who must be livid about not having a chance to beat CBS in the ratings for their pregame show since one affiliate is flat-out refusing to show it? For that? For 4 continuous hours of prayer? For 8 consecutive programs? Come on. But okay. Maybe there's a reason that the Mike Gottfried show is preempting NFL 85. Maybe it's one of those things where that show does so much better, and no one really bats an eye over missing the pregame show. Maybe I'm just overreacting. And yeah, that seems to be the case. As Anthony Maisel said, we don't make a lot of money at either one of the... Wait a second, time out. So you're telling me that you're not benefiting from airing this show in any way whatsoever? And you're admitting that you receive calls from angry viewers who want to watch NFL 85 and couldn't care less about watching Kansas football highlights from a game they already saw yesterday? That raises the question, what the heck are you doing? How brain dead are you? So you're telling me that you preempt a show that the rest of the country gets, even though you do not have to. You can air it any other time. You receive no financial benefits for doing this, and you take off your viewer base in the process? That's the worst business model ever. There's nothing about this model that makes any sense at all. If literally any of the aforementioned reasons worked in your favor, then okay. I wouldn't be crazy about it, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Since you're a business at the end of the day, you know your viewers the best, and the times were different back then. But this, literally nothing goes in your favor. It's like if I had the option of acting normal or punching myself in the nuts. Even though I don't get any money from people when I do that, I'm in pain, no one wants to see it, and people actively complain that they don't want to be around me when I do it. I'm really struggling to understand what incentive, if any, KSNW had to airing this show over NFL 85 and preempting live NFL coverage for, in essence, repackaged Kansas football highlights from the previous day. And when you combine that with the fact that it's freaking Kansas football, as in, not a good team, and a team that wasn't even good in 1985, as they were 500 with a 2-5 record in conference play, nor were they any good the year before in 1984, and truly nothing about this makes any sense at all. Did anyone like this? Well, based on reports from newspapers who lambasted KSNW for doing this, including one writer who sarcastically wrote that NFL 85 isn't shown because we need to see an exciting, stimulating look at the University of Kansas football, I'm going to go with no. Fortunately, Wichita viewers eventually got to see NFL 85 once Kansas's football season was over, as beginning in December when the Jayhawks had no games left, NFL viewers had an alternative to choose from if they didn't like the NFL Today on CBS. But by this point, seeing as we only had a few weeks left of the regular season and the postseason, it was too late, as Kansas football caught into about 75% of the airings of NFL 85. Maisel said on all of this, it is a commitment, and we hope people understand that. But I can't blame them for not understanding it. Not when they're just about the only NBC affiliate in the country that isn't getting the show, and they're in an NFL market. Not when you're not even contractually obligated to air the show. Not when it's interfering with the enjoyment of the hometown team, since they can't watch the Chiefs pregame show, and the show on CBS isn't going to talk about them, since they'll only talk about the games on their network, barring some select few exceptions. And not when you could have aired the show at any other time to fulfill your commitment, including one of the 10,000 hours devoted to the church. And putting the onus on the viewers to understand your commitment, which based on the language of the contract, is a very one-sided commitment, and blaming the viewers for being mad at you for your incompetence and your terrible planning is something else entirely. Because back in 1985, while the rest of the country tuned into NBC and heard about the NFL, all Wichita viewers could hear, much to their dismay, was Rock Chalk Jayhawk. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.